In this episode, we have a truly inspiring guest joining us, Anna Roberts, a dynamic mindset coach who has dedicated her career to help expats and immigrants feel at home in their new surroundings. With a decade of experience living in the romantic city of Paris, and now back in the UK, where she was born, Anna brings to the episode a bunch of personal stories and professional insights about her expat life. Get ready to deep dive in her journey and discover what it truly means to live abroad.
This is Expat Experts, the podcast that dives into the fascinating lives of those who've lived and worked across borders, exploring the challenges, experiences, and insights they've gained along the way.
Before we dive in today's episode, I want to remind you all listeners that the way to stay tuned with the latest content and episodes is hitting subscribe in YouTube and also in your favorite audio platform. For more insights and exclusive one-on-one calls on how to create your own podcast, your YouTube channel, or navigating your life as an expat, visit our website, expatexpertspodcast.com, or check the link in the description.
The Expat, Anna Roberts.
Well, again, thanks a lot for accepting the invitation, but we really just say it like you moved to France. Was France the first move ever abroad? Like, you're originally from UK. Let's start from there, no? Maybe.
Yeah, so I'm from Manchester in the northwest England, and yeah, I moved to France just after university, so I was 22, and that was my first experience of living abroad, and I kind of had this affinity with France, which I moved around a bit, and then I ended up in Paris for 10 years. So yeah.
Okay, not bad. So you just finished studies, and then why did you decide to go to France? It was a job reason, or?
So I had a job, but I always loved. So I finished my studies. I studied history. I studied modern social history,
Nice.
And after that, I was like, I'm not quite ready to go into the corporate world. I'm not quite ready to like settle down and have a job, like an adult job. So there was that, and there was also I always loved France. When I was a kid, I used to go on holiday to France with my family, and I loved learning French in school, and I'd missed that connection that I had. So I found out that there was a way of getting, they call them assistantships, where I could work in a school and teach English in France, and I chose France. They actually do this all around the world. It's with the British Council, and I chose France, and this was perfect. It was like 7 months in France, a way to reconnect to a country that I absolutely love. So that's what took me there. And then the rest kind of led on from that.
So you went theoretically for 7 months and you stayed 10 years. That's kind of common also with expats. You said that you most of this time you lived in Paris, but you also lived in other places. So was due to the school you were sent somewhere else before that, or?
Yes. So the schools that I was working into lycée, which is like kind of high school. And that was in Brittany, so the area to the west of France. And that's why I used to go on holiday there. So that was perfect because it was kind of reconnecting my childhood. And after that, I moved to the south of France. I worked on a campsite for 3 months just to learn French, just to really learn all, like, I was literally thrown in at the deep end. There was nobody there who could speak English. And it was really hard. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast because I like to swear.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. I'm not going to offend anybody. I was going to say it's really fucking hard. Just to give that emphasis. And I loved it though. It was in Provence, like in the south. It's absolutely gorgeous down there, and I loved it. And when I went back to the UK after that, I wasn't ready to settle down. I was just like, no, my time in France is not over. And I was applying for so many jobs, and most of them were based in Paris because that's where the majority of jobs are, especially for expats, and where having English is obviously a huge advantage. And I applied for a load of jobs, and I applied for a job at the British Embassy in Paris, and I ended up getting that job. So that's what took me to Paris.
Okay.
So it was amazing.
Cool. So you went back, like you went for how months? Like nearly a year then, in the first
In the
time
UK?
after university? No, I mean like in the France when
Oh,
you went after
yeah,
university.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then you came back UK, and then you went back again like to Paris, and
Yeah.
that's when you stayed for
Yeah.
the whole years.
Yes. Well, I moved to Paris. I was originally on a 6-month contract with the British Embassy, and I moved to France, to Paris, with this intention that I was going to be there for 6 months. So I was like, yes, it's great. Let's just like party and have fun. And I was in my early 20s, so it was great. And then it got extended, my contract, and then it got made permanent. And then 4 years later, I was still at the embassy, and then I was like, oh, okay, what do I do? What do I do now? And then it just kind of led on from there. So that's how it happened. It was meant to be temporary, and then it kind of just got extended. So yeah.
Cool.
And I
Very
went with
nice. Well, that's good. Like, if you liked the job, the life there, and as you said, actually, you already spoke the language back then, so you knew French from school, but also, I suppose, being in regions where the English it's not that common also helps to catch up with language a little bit faster.
Yeah, so the language thing, I was really, really fortunate that I did speak French already when I moved to Paris, and I know so many people don't, and that is a big kind of a block in terms of the integration. But when I moved to Brittany, my French was, like, when I first moved to France, my French was really bad, and I just had basic kind of school level French, and I was also living with another Brit and an American girl, so we didn't speak much French, and that's what kind of led me to go on the campsite. So I had no option but to learn. Yeah.
Nice. How was adapting to a city like Paris? Because I mean, everyone has the romantic part of Paris, like as a city of love and whatever. But at the end, when you live there, it's an enormous city. It can be brutal in some senses, I suppose.
Yep.
So how was adaptation for you?
It smells of piss everywhere. There's dog shit everywhere. I mean, this is the reality of Paris. It's obviously a gorgeous city, but it's real life as well. You know, it's not Emily in Paris, and that can be very triggering for people to watch Emily in Paris and be like, my life is not like that. What is this? What am I doing wrong? The adaptation, I think, because I went with only 6 months in mind, I didn't really have many expectations. It was more afterwards, which I'm sure we're going to get into. That's when it started to be difficult for me. And really, when I first moved, because I was at the embassy, I already had that structure in terms of routine, in terms of friendships. I had that already, so I was in a very comfortable position. If anything, it was too easy because it was going from the UK to another UK establishment, and it was like there wasn't much difference other than I was living in Paris.
Yeah.
But it was a very soft, very gradual transition, and I feel very fortunate to have had that. So yeah.
So basically, your job in the embassy was mainly with British people, also. Like it also, right? So it's like it's literally British territory, you know, like it's how it.
Yeah.
So I suppose that also softened a little bit the adaptation, also because it's just like, okay, you meet other people. You said you had friends already in Paris back in the time, or
no, I didn't have friends, but my colleagues at the embassy became my friends, and that was great. It also led to some problems as well, because when you are in such a bubble that your friends and your colleagues are all the same, and it can create some tension. But I initially went to France with a dream to live a French life. I always loved France. I always loved speaking French. I wanted to be integrated, and I wanted to be immersed in the culture and the language and have French friends, which is such a common thing for expats to have. They want to have local friends. And I had that too. I wanted that. That was my dream. So yes, it was an easier transition, but I still didn't feel like I was living the dream that I had in my head. Um, so yeah. So it's easy to see with hindsight now that it was kind of like a gentler approach rather than just going from this to this. But I was still effectively in this bubble, and I kind of wanted something different.
I see. And when you realized that, did you change it? I mean, it's not an easy normally. Like you have your bubble, and what you're saying, no, a lot of expats ends with their colleagues being their friends, whatever. Because if you work in an international environment, you are similar to these persons, and at the end, you are other expats around you who had similar experiences, and that becomes your colleagues, becomes your friends. Work becomes your circle, and all of that. How did you break with that?
It took me a while. Honestly, it took me a while. I remember going through a phase of trying to have French friends, and it never works like that, because when you hold on to it too hard, too tightly, that's when it never happens. And because you kind of feel that desperate, needy energy. And to be honest, when I think about it now, like I wanted French friends because it helped me feel more belonging. It would legitimize my place in Paris. And that was all like a mindset thing, rather than, it was kind of like in a way it wasn't really using, but it was subconsciously using somebody to make me feel better about myself. And when I let go of that, and I kind of realized that I am an expat, and a lot of expats will have friends with other expats, and it's okay. That's when I started to have local friends. But it started when I had that realization, and I made friends with other expats outside of the embassy, through things like Bumble BFF, which is great. I really love this as a way of meeting people. And then getting really like pushing myself to do things that I always wanted to do, but I was scared to do, like sports activities, things that I actually really genuinely wanted to do, not just random meetups, which there's a lot of those in the expat community, just international meetups and over a drink, and it never really worked for me because I like something that's deeper, more a deeper connection rather than something that's surface.
I call it live Tinder with alcohol. The meetups, expat meetups. It's kind of that. There is a lot of people like trying to crash on other people, and people gets drunk, and then it's leads to uncomfortable situations with people that you don't know at all, and that you don't have the connection with them. I totally get it. Like that's part of the expat life.
Yeah, and I did do quite a few. I think like if you've never done them, like definitely try them. But I did quite a few of them, and I just felt like it never really worked for me because maybe it's a different vibe in Paris. Different cities have different vibes. But I just felt like there was something lacking, and after a while, I wanted more than just a shared internationalness. I wanted something real, because I had a lot of acquaintances already, and I didn't want more acquaintances. I wanted friends, deeper friends, so deeper friendships. So, that's when I started pushing myself to actually do things, do activities that scared me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like at the end, you end meeting people through these activities, like I don't know, like you said, sports, for example, and then you have a connection that it's not solely the fact of being expats, no? Like, and you had something else to talk about, for example.
Exactly, but they did tend to be expats, and that was fine. But it wasn't just that reunited us. It was also, like, I've signed up to a netball event. I don't know if you know about netball. It's really big in the UK, so it was really random to find that there was a netball kind of activity happening in Paris, and I went one time with the intention of just because I wanted to do netball, and then I met two girls who became really good friends. Just that one time, we all went one time, and then that was it. We just exchanged numbers, and we just kept contact ever since then, and we're really close now. So, nice. Yeah, just random things like that. It was like, it was destiny. It's meant to happen.
Cool. So you said, for example, in the embassy, like for work, you had a 6-month contract, and then directly they made you permanent position. or
I
it
had
was an
6 months
extension,
and then an extension.
progressive? Okay.
In France, you have a maximum of 18 months, I think, extension on a temporary contract. And then once they reached that, they were like, they have to make a decision whether to keep me or let me go, and they kept me. So, yay.
Okay. Good for you. In any way,
Yeah.
like, it was that the moment that you decided that you wanted to stay? Like, it was when you had a permanent contract in your hands, or before that you already had it clear that even if it wasn't going to work with the embassy, for example, you would like to stay in France for a long, or in Paris for a longer time?
I don't think I had any clear moment when I was like, okay, I definitely want to stay. But I remember really being, now you mention it, like I'm just thinking about now, I remember really being concerned about not having a permanent contract. So obviously that shows that I did want to stay. I think it was more, I wasn't ready to go back to the UK, and there was still more to experience in Paris. But yeah, I think I'd already made that decision. That's why I was kind of pushing as well. Like I was pushing for them to make my contract permanent, and I did have a few backup plans as well. I had some interviews in different organizations as well.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess the decision was already made.
Cool. What about culturally shocks? Like, did you have any like hard moment culturally wise, or trying difficulties adapting to Paris, for example? Do you remember a specifically hard moment for you?
Culturally, I think something that was quite difficult was French people are very different to British people, especially in the northwest. Like people from Manchester are known for being very friendly. The people in Paris are known for not being super friendly, and that is the stereotype. And if we take that too personally, we can really get pulled into that, and it can be quite shocking. I remember working with somebody once, and they described it as having PTSD from having lived in Paris. Whenever they go into quite extreme, but some people have very they're just not used to the reactions, which can be interpreted as being rude, but it's just directness, and that's the way they are. Not everybody, but in general, it's big generalizations here. But if you're not used to it, or especially if you're coming from North America, where everyone's very open and friendly, it can be quite shocking to the system. So I think there were certain times when I was like, what's wrong with these people? Why are they so mean? But it's so easy to take it personally, but it's not a personal thing. So that would be one thing. And then also in terms of finding apartments, that's just an absolute nightmare. The system and having
big cities in Europe. Oh my gosh.
Nightmare. Yeah. That was really tricky, and you have to navigate all that by yourself, and challenging.
So there was some kind of system in there that you didn't like. Is there a system for finding a flat in Paris, to be honest? Like, or it's just like being a little bit lucky and having contacts to I know someone who knows someone.
Kind of like that, knowing somebody who knows someone, getting lucky, let's say embellishing the truth on certain things when it comes to your dossier, like your folder that you hand in. But yeah, luck comes down to it a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And just being really persistent and having to drop your standards in a way as well. Not to the point where you're going to go somewhere where you really don't want to go, but the dream apartment that you have in your head, you might not get it. So maybe apply for everything and just see what you like and who accepts your dossier. That's it.
I see. I mean, I suppose the prices also increased during these 10 years you lived in Paris. Did the city change a lot during these 10 years that you were there? Not only price-wise, but in general?
Honestly, yeah. When I look back now, like when I moved out of Paris this February, and I was packing up my stuff, and I was looking back, and I was like, oh man, yeah, like taking me back to 2015, and everything things have changed in terms of, I don't know, like this very subtle changes. Fashion wise, things, everything changes fashion wise anyway. But in Paris, it was quite conservative, and I feel like now with the Y2K vibe and everything's kind of going androgynous style. I know that's kind of like a global thing, but I feel like before Paris had still held on to its a typical Parisian look, whereas now it's a bit more, I would say, more New Yorky even.
Okay.
Apartments, yeah, I mean, like the prices have just skyrocketed. It's insane now. When I think about how much my last apartment cost when I moved in 2020, it's probably gone up by at least 25%. And yeah.
Yeah, I
Mad.
think that's a global thing. I
Yeah.
actually interviewed another coach some episodes ago who helps expats quitting alcohol, Susan. She's
Yeah,
Irish,
Susan,
but
yeah.
she lived yeah.
Yeah,
So she lived in Paris actually, and now she moved outside of the suburb, like of the city center in the suburbs, also because has
yeah.
a family, etc. But also because price. When she arrived 20 years ago to Paris, or more than 20 years ago in Paris, you could live in the center with whatever you had, no, even with a
Yeah.
rather small job, and now. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the tendency that we are seeing in all big cities in whole Europe, probably.
Yeah.
But
I definitely feel that when I moved to Paris, when I was at the embassy, even on a smaller salary, I was able to live very, very comfortably in Paris. And my apartment was bigger than the apartment that I had like 4 years ago when I moved in. So yeah, big changes.
it happens, I suppose. Like, it's part of life. It's tricky. Not everything goes up and the salaries doesn't. But yeah, uh, without entering too much in politics, if you want, we can enter. I don't have a problem with that. But when so when it's the moment that you like realize what I'm doing in Paris, when it's the moment that you decide to go back to UK, why the movement, like the repatriation, let's call it, like going back home,
Yeah.
realization?
Oh, so I would say in last year, 2023, I started to have that feeling. I was starting to just feel like I want more space, and I want more greenery, and I miss nature. And I was missing nature a lot. I actually set up a hiking group with a few of my girlfriends, and I organized it every month because I missed hiking and I missed nature
Okay,
so much. So every
cool.
month we would go out into Ile-de-France, and go for a hike around there. But it wasn't enough. I needed more greenery. And when I've been living in a concrete jungle effectively for the past 10 years, and the calling was there, and I didn't want to listen to it for a while because all my life was in Paris. All my friends were in Paris. Everything I knew on my adult life, I lived in Paris. And it was quite challenging because I was resisting that calling. And then after a while, I would say November last year, I just had that moment when I was like, I think it's time to go back. Cry that out for maybe about a week. And then things set in motion. And then I tested the water actually first. I wrote my letter to the agency to give my apartment back. I just had it typed out, and I said to myself, if I can type this out and see how I feel afterwards, I don't have to send it. Let's just test. And I did it, and it felt okay. And then I printed it out, and it felt okay. And then I put it in a letter, and I was like, it feels okay. It's a little bit scary, but it's okay. So I felt like it was good. It was like an aligned decision. And then, yeah, everything kind of just moved on from that.
You are not working for the embassy anymore at the point of time. You're
No,
already coaching, or?
Yes. I worked at the embassy for 4 years, and then I did a few other jobs in French companies. And then it was at the beginning of last year that I started a job in a consulting firm, And instantly I knew that it wasn't the right thing for me. The coaching thing was already in my mind. And I was like, you know what, Anna, you've got to go with this now. So last year was a big year for me. There's a lot of changes. And so I was already working on my coaching thing, which allowed me to have that freedom. Yeah.
Cool. So you probably would say that the hardest part of the decision of going back to the UK is, of course, like the emotional part of friends and people that you leave behind. I think that's also a common feeling for expats who needs to move regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always talk about a grieving process with clients, and on my Instagram I talk about it a lot. That we need to embrace changes and cry, like give yourself time to really feel it, and ugly cry, like get it all out of your system. Have all those thoughts that are saying to you, you're a failure, what are you doing this for, what if this doesn't work, what if it's the wrong decision, what about if you regret it. Just let the thoughts be there and just give it some time to, like, in a way, listen to it and just cry it out, because it needs to be addressed. And then afterwards you'll have a period of like feeling more peaceful. But something that I will say about this, which really shocked me, and it's not really to do with Paris, but it's more on a philosophical level. I lived in Paris for 10 years, and I arrived when I was 24, and I'm almost 34 now. And I had this moment when I was like, shit, that's 10 years of my life that's gone. Like that's scary. Like, that was scary for me, just to acknowledge that. And I didn't want to let go of Paris, because like I realized I was holding on to that because I didn't want to accept in a way, like, my mortality, you know, the shortness of life. So yeah, to get it pretty deep on all of a sudden, but yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think for a lot of people suddenly realizing, oh wow, I've been, I don't know, in my case, it's like 7 years of my life abroad from home. And it's suddenly like, wow, 7 years, it's a lot of time. Like 10 years, it's a lot of time. And life has changed around me. Like I changed a lot during this time. I'm not the same person that I left home when I left. That's also something that I wanted to ask you, because that's the typical also, like, going back home feelings, also expecting that everything, it's a little bit like you left it at some point. Did you had any of these feelings? Did you had any of these troubles a lot of expats when they go back home have, that they don't feel that they belong there anymore, for example, or they don't find their friends in the same state that they were when you left them also? Like, did you had this?
Yeah. I not so much, actually, and I think that's because I really accepted that this is where I am, and I made a very big effort to. I understand I understand that I needed to be grounded in myself and understand myself and take care of myself, give myself space. The thing that I did worry about a little bit, and it is normal, you know, to a certain extent, when you go back, especially to your hometown, it's easy to regress. It's easy to forget about who you've become and all the experiences that you've had, and that you're not the same person anymore, because that pull when you go back to your hometown, and especially if you're staying with family, it's very strong, and it can be quite easy to lose yourself. So ensuring that you have in place structures to get back into yourself, to get back, like, ground into yourself, into your adult self, and kind of acknowledge and honor all the experiences and who you are today. It's quite difficult as well when you meet with friends who you've not seen for a long time, and family who still see you as a person who you were, and you're not that person anymore. And like I said, it's very easy to regress and move back into that person. But then instantly you'll feel like like it's jarring, like it doesn't feel good. It feels very unnatural and very misaligned. And you're like, that's because I'm not being me. I'm not being myself. So yeah, it's going to feel like shit. And then that will motivate you to get back into who you are. Like, yeah.
Makes sense. What about plans, future plans? Are you planning to move again, or it's now the idea of like staying in the UK at least for some time?
Well, the UK was always just like a temporary thing for me. It just felt, it was the right time, my business wise. Like I mentioned, I wanted connection to nature, and I have all that, and it's great because I'm going from Paris to pretty much the countryside. It's very rural around here, so it's amazing. But the city life is calling me back, and in a couple of weeks I'm going to Madrid, and I don't know how long I'm going to go there. I'm going with the flow, and I'll see. But yeah, for a long time I was like, I'm going to the UK and that's it. Like, I think it's good to be committed to where you are rather than in your head too much. But I always said, when I get a feeling, when I get that calling, I'm going to go with it. And a few weeks ago, I felt more and more like I wanted to go to Madrid. It was always kind of there, lingering in the background. So going for it.
Nice. How is your Spanish?
Yeah, it's, I mean, I did A-level, so, like high school level Spanish, but we'll see. I feel like going there will help me.
For sure. I mean, it's becoming a very international city anyway, so I suppose you can
I'm
now
not worried.
survive. I mean,
Yeah,
also
sure.
in Barcelona, when I go back home in Barcelona, sometimes I listen more English than Catalan or Spanish, so it's kind of weird, especially in the center. But yeah, it's very touristified lately. So yeah, you're planning a little bit to go the digital nomad way now, or like you can, no? I suppose you work fully remote, so are you planning to go a little bit like that?
That's the dream. That's the dream. I haven't done it yet because I just felt like I wanted a bit more stability whilst I'm at the beginning of my business, and wanted to just spend time focusing on it. But yeah, I would love to spend time traveling. I absolutely love traveling. I've not done it properly since just before COVID, like backpacking and stuff. And I would love to get back into that. So yeah.
Nice. With a laptop though. Now
with my laptop still working. But I think, when you're a coach, it's so important to be filling your own cup, like making sure that you're feeling happy, you've got the right energetics, because if you put too much focus and too much time in other people, you're giving too much, but you're not giving from a full cup. So you're going to get burnt out pretty quick. And it's just really important to spend so much time on my internal world and my energetics, so I can give properly and be really present and there for people. So yeah, so that's what I'm kind of leaning into, is like the traveling. I really love it. I've missed it. So doing that and working at the same time, I think it would be the best combination for me and my clients.
Sounds cool. Yeah, makes sense. So maybe already we are talking about you coaching. I would like to ask you a couple of questions that I do at the end of the expat part. And it's basically top recommendations on, in this case, I suppose it will be Paris. It's the place where you live the most. But do you have any favorite French food, actually?
I mean, French food is just, it's so good. That what I love about French food is it's quite simple, and yeah, it's very good quality. It's very different to the UK. I mean, just like a steak frite, like steak and chips is very, very simple with like a pepper sauce or something like that, but it's really good. Yeah, I mean, and any stews like boeuf bourguignon and all the classics like coq au vin, so good. But I really love steak and chips. It's just done in Paris, done in France.
Okay, so it's the evolution of fish and chips, I see. Okay. What about drinks? I suppose, I mean, come on. Yeah. Do you drink wine? That's the biggest question ever because, of course, France is known for its wine. So I don't know if I want to ask about the drinks itself.
Yeah, French wine is amazing. I don't really have much to add.
Yeah, no,
um,
that's a good sentence. French wine, it's amazing.
yeah,
Uh, then I would say, music-wise, do you listen to a lot of French music? There is any band that you like a lot
yeah.
from France?
I love. It's not a band. It's a guy. Orelsan. I never know how to say his name properly. So like, apologies people who are listening to this and be like, she just butchered that. Um, he's a rapper, and
Okay.
I love him. He's amazing. Um, yeah, and I saw him at a festival last year, so that was great. And then there's some classics as well from the 80s, which I started to learn about this when I was living on the campsite, and then I hear them all the time when I'm in Paris because they bring them up all the time, like on especially in nightclubs and stuff, and like Indochine, so a band from the 80s. And there's like that Voyage Voyage song, which everyone,
Yeah,
I don't know,
famous.
yeah, yeah,
Nice.
things like that. I mean, they're so good.
Yeah, of course. I still prefer old music than new one, so that's okay.
I love 80s music, so
Yeah.
80s and
Um,
Frenchies.
yeah, nice. What about restaurants or coffee places or bars? Do you have a favorite spot in Paris?
Um, mm, 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 mm. So restaurants, there's like a chain in Paris called Bouillon, and it's interesting because it's quite touristy, but at the same time there are so many locals who go there because the food is very well priced and really good quality,
Okay.
and you have to queue up outside. There's quite a few of them dotted around Paris. You have to queue up, and normally you're queuing up for about half an hour, 40 minutes, but it's so
Wow.
worth it. And the food's great, and I love just the mixture of tourists, and everybody goes, and that's what's because the food's just great.
Nice.
Um, and then bars. I was living in the 15th for the past 4 years, and which is a quieter part of Paris, more residential. You wouldn't really go there for a night out and stuff, but I used to go to this one bar called La Tour Eiffel, very original.
Oh.
And the wine it's more of a low, you don't get many tourists going down in the 15th unless you live there. And the wine was just really good. The service was great. So I always went there. That was kind of my local. I'd even sometimes just go there after work and just feel like, just have one on the terrace, like watching the world go by. I have lots of nice memories from that.
Cool. Very nice. So the last question before we go to the expert part of the episode, and you as a coach, any secret spot that you want to share in Paris, if there is any secret spot remaining in Paris?
Secret spot. What is this? Is this like the catacombs or something?
Yeah. No, more like the place that you love
Because
to go.
because the catacombs are all underground tunnels, apparently all under Paris, which is
Yes.
but you might get lost, which is a bit dangerous. A secret spot. So it's not really a secret spot. I mean, it's very well known, but the 11th district, arrondissement, I just love it there because it's such a cool vibe, and everyone's really trendy. Everyone's so fashionable, and there's loads of amazing independent cafes and loads of cool bars where you can just sit there for hours, just on the corner and just watching people go by. Like that's the number one spot in Paris. So anywhere in the 11th, I just love it. I mean, that was always my dream to have an apartment there. It's also kind of overlooked because it's not got many tourist attractions. It's not really known for anything in particular. Can't think. Not really. Like it's got La République at the top, but other than that, it's just a cool place.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, with these recommendations, I would say we jump directly to the second part of the episode. Hey there, everyone. If you're loving this episode so far and you want to stay tuned with other expat experiences, make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow our podcast so you never miss an episode. On top of that, we are now offering one-on-one calls to help you kickstart your own YouTube channel, launch a podcast, or navigate the journey of becoming an expat. Whether you are dreaming of sharing your story with the world or just need some guidance on your expat adventure, we've got you covered. Check the product section on our website, expatexpertspodcast.com, or check the link in the description and book your session today. With that said, let's go back to the episode.
The Expert. Coach expats how to love their lives abroad.
Yeah, we've already been touching it and talking about it a little bit here and there, at the end. But the biggest question, I think, it's when did you realize that you wanted to become a coach, and how did it happen? Why did you decided to be a coach?
So I decided I wanted to be a coach probably about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I realized that I had a passion for psychology, which I didn't know about. I love psychology, love philosophy, and I was getting into it more and more, researching things, reading about like lots of self-help things because it just fascinated me, and learning about human behavior and spending a lot of time on YouTube and learned so much. And I was moving towards wanting to do maybe relationship coaching or something like that. The idea of coaching was already in my mind. It just felt more like a natural progression in that direction. And also I'd had like a very brief encounter of entrepreneurship. I was doing that for a period of time after I left the embassy with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that experience. Nothing to do with coaching. It was to do with sustainable jewelry, a brand. But I loved that entrepreneurial feel and having that freedom and having that kind of drive to create something that's my own. So there was that, and then there was the desire for moving in psychology. That was kind of my passion. So I kind of combined the two in coaching and expat coaching, because I also had my own difficulties, and I was starting to notice other people were having similar difficulties, and yet there didn't seem many people on the market who I would feel I didn't see anybody in particular. I didn't even know that it was a niche, and then I dug a little bit more, and I realized that it is, but it's still very small.
So,
yeah.
So a lot of it, like maybe that not the whole idea of coaching, maybe not, but the idea of like coaching experts and the whole idea of like helping people to feel part of a place that they are living, it's due majority through your own experience. Like, do you coach or through what you have lived before?
Yeah, so my experience, like I mentioned, I moved for the embassy, and then everything was great. And then it was after a while I started to question things. I had a lot of uncertainty about how long I was going to be there. There was like wanting local friends, but not feeling good enough to have local friends, or why weren't things happening? What was wrong? Why wasn't, all these kind of questions were coming in. And I felt very alone in my questions, even though I wasn't alone. I had friends, but I felt alone. I felt like no one was really understanding or resonating with me. And when I got through that and I started noticing, wait, there's a whole other bunch of expats who also feel the same. We're just not very honest with each other because we don't want to admit that we're having difficulties, because it takes a level of vulnerability to talk about things like that, obviously. And so yeah, it kind of just felt, I'm struggling. There must be so many other people who are struggling, and it's not really talked about. So there is definitely a need here to help people. And when I was coming out of my difficulties and I started to think, well, this seems like a really good niche for me. And to be honest, it wasn't even a decision. It was just like, I always knew I wanted to help expats, really, because like, the relationship coaching thing was very short-lived. And then I was like, I think I can help expats. There are so many people who are lonely and so many people who suffering unnecessarily, you know, by putting more pressure on themselves from mindset issues which don't need to be there. And I just want people to feel at home, because it is really about how you feel in yourself. So that's what led me to working with expats.
Cool. Very nice. Did you study or did you take any certification for becoming a coach? It's something common. Okay.
Yeah. I did a coaching certification. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
In France, back in France, or
no, it was online. So the school's based in London, and so I did it with them. Yeah.
Does it change between countries?
What do you mean?
If you have a certification, you could coach in multiple countries, or
so the thing with coaching is it's unregulated, and so you don't have to have a specific certification in one country. It's just, you don't even have to have a certification to do coaching, but I wanted to have one because I wanted to gain the skill set and I wanted to have it official as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. So in a general way, what is your approach? How would you define your coaching? Like, what is your focus when you have people coming to you?
I kind of touched on this already about how you feel in yourself, basically. I want people to feel settled, but it's not necessarily about getting settled where you live. It's being settled in your body, being settled in your mind, and diffusing the beliefs that you have about yourself, or the beliefs about how your life should be, how it should look when you live abroad. And a lot of this is what's causing the unnecessary loneliness and the unnecessary pain. Obviously, there's a layer of strategy involved in this, in terms of building a bond with your community and having a routine and making real friendships, like deeper level friendships. But a lot of it is about the mindset, which is why I love talking about the mindset. A lot of it is about the connection to yourself. If you don't feel the connection to yourself, if you're not listening to yourself, no matter where you go, you will feel lonely. You will feel like you don't belong. You will feel unsettled. And this is the root of it. So I like to go deep. I like to get into that.
Nice. So it's a lot about self-esteem before, like working with self-esteem with the people, and then mindset around yourself to be able to accept whatever it comes around you at the end somehow.
Yes, and like kind of building on that main character energy, which everyone's talking about now, is you don't have to try and fit yourself into a box of how you think you should be in order to behave, in order to belong. When you know that you belong somewhere, when you are yourself and you're being authentic, it's about authenticity, really. That changes everything. Like, you can literally go to a country where you don't speak the language, but if you are owning your place where you're living, and if you know that you belong there, people will act to you differently. Whereas if you go thinking, I'm a foreigner, I don't belong, I'm really lucky to live here, like it gives off a certain vibe. And yeah, of course we are lucky, we are very privileged to have this, but we don't have to see it as from a disempowered place.
I see.
So it's building up that empowerment, really.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of preconception, no? Funny enough that you talk about the main character energy. There was also an episode with a coach who's focused on that, with Tanya Rose.
Oh, really?
She's here in Greece. Yeah. She's coaching mainly main character energy, and we talk about it. And at the end also, like I think the fact that where your focus also, like it's very important what you have in your mind when you are, or where you push yourself being an expert, no? Like the whole expectation bundles, baggage that you're carrying with you when you move abroad on, hey, my life abroad needs to be not only as an expert, I suppose like people who are refugees or everything, like even this baggage is even bigger because you have a very, very high set idea of what your life needs to become in the new country that you are arriving to. How do you tackle it? Because I see the focus and I understand a lot the focus, but how do you work with these people? What is your process with them?
So the process would be I've kind of follow a framework in terms of building that connection. So building connection with other people, looking at your friendships, looking at how connected do you feel to the society, and building on that, like language and things like that. And the resistance that comes up, start digging into what is that resistance. And normally it's around a belief like, I don't know, we talk about friendships, for example, these people they're not my type of person, or something like that. And then we look into that and we dig into that. And there's normally, because there's a belief that it's around the way that they think it should be. And we want to drop that dream in a way, because when we drop the dream, when we drop the idea of how something should be, how it should look, the dream normally arrives. So once we just understand what the belief is, it's not going to disappear like that, but it will start to slow down and it will start to break down. And over time, you can start to shift that perception that you have about things. And then you've taken the pressure off yourself. You know, like local friendships, right? Local friends, once you take that pressure off, that a lot of expats will have expat friends and it's okay. There is nothing wrong with you. You know, it's like, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not doing anything wrong. And instantly you just feel better. But in order to get to those beliefs, we need to set in place actions and need to have some level of commitment to where you're living now in order to get clarity, in order to know. And even at the end of it, maybe you'll realize that you don't want to live there anymore. And that's okay. But first of all, we need to start doing the work in order to investigate what's coming up for you.
Makes sense. How do you do that? Like, how do you organize your day? Like, I'm curious about how is your normal day, work day look like? You have a lot of like one-on-one calls, or you have like group calls with multiple people at the same time? How is the work done?
Yeah, so I have one-on-one clients, and that's my focus right now. But yeah, interestingly, you mentioned about the group thing, because that's something that I'm bringing out very, very soon, because I realize that there's one key element, which is the community. And I really, really believe in group coaching, because you don't have just one mirror, which is the coach. You have all these other people who are going to be teaching you and also bouncing things off you. And when we realize as well that, you know, it's not just country specific, a lot of the expat problems that people have are just expat problems globally. It's a human thing. It's not people in Paris have this and people in Athens have this. It's very much, you know, obviously there's place specific issues, but that tends to be more administrative and things like that, or maybe political. But the human side of it, the feeling lost, aloneness and stuff, that's just like a shared thing. And I think just taking that stigma out of it takes the pressure off instantly. And people can share and bounce ideas off and create more of a community and go through the process of learning and feeling settled and trying to feel at home in themselves with other people. So yeah, that's something that's cooking.
Nice.
I'm excited to bring that out. Yeah.
Maybe when the episode goes out, because it takes some weeks, it's already there. So maybe you can check.
Yeah.
If any of the listeners is interested, they can check it out directly. I also wanted to ask you, because you are very active in social media, actually. Like, you have quite a lot. I mean, you post, you do stories nearly every day, if not every day. You're like having posts. You're pretty active in there. So, how much of your current work is also right now not only the one-on-one calls and the coaching part, but like, I don't know if calling it self-promotion or marketing, or like helping also in a more like open way in social media.
Yeah, I mean, it's marketing, and it's how I get my clients, because I'm only on Instagram right now.
Okay.
But like, the whole reason why I wanted to do this in the first place is to help other people, and I really love writing as well. So it's just a way of, sometimes it does get overwhelming, and you can have like a mental block, writer's block kind of thing, and we run out of creativity. And then I remind myself why I started this to begin with, and it's really just to kind of share things. I don't want people to feel alone. I don't want people to feel like they're the only one who's struggling through this, and just knowing that they have that little bit of reassurance is really good. But yeah, I'm on Instagram. I love I love Instagram platform, although it's very glitchy right now. But
yeah, cool, very nice. Maybe the last question, because before we close the episode, and well, of course, afterwards, I would like to share your channels, and I would like you to see where listeners can find you. But what is the joy that you have behind coaching? Like, what do you feel it's the part that keeps you motivated to continue coaching with people?
I love this question. It's like a coaching question. I feel like I'm being coached.
Sorry about that.
No, it's great. I really do love talking to people. I love just like the building that connection, and knowing that I'm just helping someone to ease their pain a little bit. And if I can show them that they don't have to be like that, as in they don't have to be sitting in the pain, and that there is kind of like an empowered and a feeling on the other side of this, that's great. And like, at the same time, when I'm coaching people, I also gain something from that. I learn things about myself as well, so it's not just like a one-way thing. It's a partnership. And yeah, just being able to be so understand people and understand how the mind works, and as well, and have that level of connection with someone and knowing that they're putting their trust in me as well, which is great. I just really love the feeling that I get when I'm coaching someone.
Nice. So yeah, before closing the episode, I suppose one of the most important parts is, where can listeners find you? You said that right now it's Instagram, but what is the handle right now? What is your profile name, basically?
Yeah, it's Anna Roberts Coaching. Very simple, and yeah, only on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but I'm not very present. I'm very present on Instagram, as you mentioned. So yeah, Anna Roberts Coaching, and I always say my DMs are open if anyone has any queries. So.
Perfect. So yeah, you know where to find Anna. Yeah, of course, the links are always in the description of the episode, so you can go directly to Instagram. And if you're searching for a coach and you're interested after listening to this episode, and you feel you resonate with the work that Anna is doing, just DM her directly. Just said that it's open to everyone, so don't over spam her too much, though. Thanks a lot, Anna. It has been a pleasure getting to know you a bit better. Thanks a lot. And yeah, I hope some of the listeners will contact you, and if they do, you can just, hopefully they say that they are coming from here. But I hope that people enjoyed this episode also.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Expat Experts, the podcast that takes you around the world through the stories of those who've lived it. Subscribe now to YouTube and your favorite podcast platform, and stay tuned for more inspiring interviews.